Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the County Commission meeting this morning. We've got a pretty, I'm not going to say a short agenda because when you do that, then it ends up being a long agenda. So, Monday morning, March 11th, 2013, it's 9 a.m., and I'll call the meeting to order. First up this morning is our Economic Development Committee, and as soon as we go through any additions or deletions, we'll go to economic development. So I'll start with Commissioner Williamson. Any additions, sir?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commissioner Salter.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Melvin.
No change, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lynchard.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
I know we do have an add-on from engineering. Mr. Walker, is there anything else that you have? Okay. All right, and we need to get Commissioner. Okay. The engineering. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead now with economic development, and Commissioner Salter, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two items. Both of them are updates. First one is an economic development update by Shannon Ogletree. Shannon?
Good morning, this wet morning. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update for the active projects we're working on. At this point, we have 18 active projects throughout our pipeline, and I'm happy to say that 16 of these 18 projects are manufacturing and logistics related. Out of these 18 projects, 2 of these projects are looking at the Gulf Breeze area. 15 of these projects are looking at the Santa Rosa Industrial Park, and 1 of these projects is looking at the I-10 Industrial Park off 87. Out of these 18 projects within the pipeline, only 3 of these are actually expanding companies. The other 15 are actually brand new companies that are looking at calling Santa Rosa County home. At this current time, we have no customer contact centers looking at either the Clearwire facility or the former Tata facility located just down the street. Stark comparison to a couple of months ago when we had 4 to 5, maybe even 6 of these type companies looking at these facilities. Some of the reasons for these companies no longer looking at these 2 facilities is ranging from they purchased their competitor and they realize their competitor's capacity, to companies not receiving contracts from their customers. So they receive a contract, then they would expand. And we've lost 2 just because of the incentive package is not as lucrative as in other states. So we currently have 5 projects pending with UWF for the Industry Retention Recruitment Fund grant. Out of those 5 projects, you're talking over 350 jobs with the grant funding payout of $3.5 million. So 5 companies, about 350 jobs with like I said, a payout of $3.5 million. And as soon as these contracts are signed with UWF, announcements will follow. That's one of the criteria of receiving the grant from UWF is to make an announcement. And just some of the notable projects we're working on, of course, Project Breeze is a company that's looking at a site over in the Santa Rosa Industrial Park. We're hoping for an announcement within the next week or 2. It's a 200-plus job operation, manufacturing, and they manufacture housing for the overseas market. Project Gold Rush is the project you approved just the last meeting for the advertisement of the 35 acres off East Milton Road, and that was 250 jobs. Project Training Day is a project I've been working with Roger and Avis on. They're looking on the backside of behind Moldex, former Moldex, along the airport. The company would only employ 15 to 20 people, but they would be training individuals from across the United States. So these trainees would come down to Santa Rosa, and they would have to stay in a hotel room. They would have to more likely eat out 3 times a day. So that's where you feel the impact of Project Training Day. Project Sierra is also looking at an existing facility out towards Pace, and it's a 50-job person operation. And Project Forge is a company out of the Northeast, a manufacturing company that we actually received the lead from the CEO from Project Breeze. The CEO of Project Breeze was impressed with what we had to offer and the incentives and our response time, that he sent our contact information to this company up in the Northeast. So we've been working with that manufacturing company. They're looking at consolidating some facilities, and the I-10 Park is the location they're looking at. So that was just a quick update. I just wanted to let you know that it is busy, and mostly manufacturing and logistics companies.
Any questions or comments from anyone?
Commissioner, please.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Shannon, while you're here, two things to me are very important. One is cleaning up our park, our industrial park. Last time I was out there, Moldex looked pretty bad. Some of the areas, the county's spending a lot of money. We're putting up new signage for our entrance, and I've already discussed with John down at Clean Communities to address landscaping that new signage. But we don't want potential clients going in there and it looking like a ghost town in some areas. So to me, that's very important, and whatever this board needs to do to help you along with that, put pressure on some of these people that own the properties, whatever it takes, we need to get that taken care of, I think.
Okay.
And the other thing is certification. We talked a lot about that in the Vision 2015 master plan, about site certification and how that's become more important in the last year or two, 2 to 3 years on when people are looking at that, to have that certification. I believe the I-10 Park would be probably the most predominant one for us to concentrate on at this point. And I'd like for you, if you have time, or when you have time, to get with us, come back to this board with some information where we need to go from here on certification for that.
Okay.
I don't think it'd be as big a pill to swallow as we may think when we talk about site preparation and stuff like that, but certainly it's something that needs to be a tool in the economic development box to help move these projects along for us on this. And could you go over Project Breeze one more time, real quick? I kind of missed that.
Project Breeze, the 200-person operation that is looking at an existing facility at the Santa Rosa Industrial Park.
Okay.
The company is currently there. They're going through some renovations of the facility, but it's pending announcements.
Okay. All right. So it's somewhat tied down, but not quite over the hill yet. Okay. That's good.
And for the site certification, you're correct. For the Pensacola Vision 2015, the site certification was a #1 priority, and the I-10 Park, the consultants listed as the #1 site within the 2-county region to be certified.
Okay, and you're keeping, and mentioning 2015, you're kind of keeping your eye on the ball there. I know they've had some, freeze of accounts, that type of thing, and, we got an investment now in that, so I'd like for you to, keep an eye on that, how that affects us, if it doesn't affect us at all. At that point, I don't see how it would affect your endeavors in economic development, but how it might affect, moving forward as a collaborative 2-county effort, so.
Okay.
Keep us posted on that, please.
I will.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Milton.
thank you. I'd just like to add one comment to Commissioner Cole's comment. Certification is something that I've been pushing for a while, and it makes more sense to me to certify them both. Prioritize them, yeah, but I think we have, Santa Rosa County has a large investment in the developed industrial park that we have, and I think we need to get them both certified. I think that's just good common business sense. You can prioritize them, but I think we need to work toward both of them, not just one.
And hopefully in the next month, we'll be able to release more details on the site certification of how we're moving forward, and I can come back to the board and give you that.
I'd like to add that as tasking to what
Mr. Chairman, I would hope as we go through this process, obviously, we will prioritize all 3 of our parks, but I would hope that we will be looking at all 3 of them for future certification as well. Thank you, Shannon. Just one comment. With sequestration the way it is nowadays and all the uncertainty, economic development is going to be even more important. I was in a meeting last week, especially down in Okaloosa County, where they're looking at furloughs and downsizing maintenance and those kind of things. The first 6 months of sequestration could have a $460 million impact on Okaloosa County. Loss of money in the county. Next thing on the agenda is Economic Development Director recruitment update. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is just a quick note. You see the memo that I outlined in your packet. We closed out the applications on March 1. We had received 48 applications, primarily from the east of the Mississippi. I'd describe it a number from Florida, mostly in the south end of the state. I'm meeting with KI Jobs this week to I've not seen the last group that they had received, and look at the full lineup, if you will, and then start to kind of figure out how we're going to go through process and that. I just wanted to keep you up. We are moving forward. I've been pleased with the work that the recruiter has done in that. This is the first time we've ever used one, and it's been a little. It's just been kind of having to work out how to make that work and to make it work effectively. So we're trying to keep you up on that. There's no reason for this to be on the agenda Thursday. This was just an update. And happy to answer any questions or.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Walker? Okay, like he said, no action on Thursday, and Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Salter. If your board will excuse me, I did have two add-ons that I skipped. I'll add number 14 as some discussion of what on last week at the National Association of Counties meeting, and item 15 is just information about a meeting I was able to set up through our national lobbyist, Ed Graber, with Senator Rubio's office. All right, item number 1 is discussion of agreement with Karen Harrell for Beaches to Woodland event coordinating services as recommended by the Tourist Development Council. Any comments, questions? This is pretty much follow through from what we've done year after year, and Karen's done an outstanding job with that. And if we have any questions or comments today, we do have the TDC director in the house, so hearing none, I'll move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes to Thursday. Item 2 is discussion of agreement with Denise Haywald for community relations social media coordinating services as recommended by the TDC, Tourist Development Council. This is a recommendation we've had from them, and take comments, questions from members of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner?
this would be, I strongly support this. I'm the board's representative to the TDC, and Ms. Haywald has been identified by MDI as a local person with boots on the ground to handle this particular function, and she's eminently qualified.
Okay. And we've all learned over the years how important social media is and the different venues there, so I'll move this Thursday's agenda without
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner?
Only concern I have in the attachment to the agreement, the last line says this person will report directly to MDI Media Group and not individual TDC board members. I understand not reporting to the individual TDC board members, but if the county is writing the checks, I would think that there should be some direct reporting to the either the TDC board as a whole or the county.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner?
Her report, and I'll yield to your legal expertise, but she would be basically a subcontractor to the contractor, to MDI. MDI, we have contracted with MDI. MDI has identified her as the local boots on the ground to be the social network, et cetera, person. And if it's necessary that she have some more formal contact, that's fine with me. I just want to clarify that she is a subcontractor of a contractor to the TDC, and we've already approved the contractor.
Mr. Chair, then my question would be, why would we, if she's a subcontractor and working for them, why would, they can hire who they want to hire, why would we be involved? So if we're going to be involved cutting a check, then I agree with Commissioner Lynch.
Our contract with MDI states that they will recommend projects to us.
Okay.
And this is one of the recommended projects or endeavors. So it's for us to approve and decide whether this is something we want to do. It was not presented to us in a subcontract format, though I know in practicality the two entities will work very closely together. But it was presented to us as a project or a proposal for us. So as I drafted the contract, it was between Santa Rosa County and Ms. Haywald. And while, of course, she'll work with MDI, we would be the folks paying the bill.
I agree 100% with Commissioner Lynchard, then, that we should, she doesn't have to come up here and do a presentation, but we should get some feedback.
That was my primary concern. This is a very public position. You know, you're the face of the county, if you will, so I think there should be some direct oversight.
Okay. Commissioner Lynchard's suggestion to everybody on board, should this, you think, go directly to our PIO to be filtered out and brought to us, or?
I would expect that it would be the executive director of the TDC, and then I'm happy to be involved, and certainly the PIO can be involved in that. I just was thinking as far as a line of control. Let us talk about that, and we'll make sure that we'll have you an answer by Thursday.
All right, then I'll move it to Thursday's meeting without objection, noting that we'll have further discussion on Thursday. Hearing none, it passes till Thursday. Item 3 is discussion of the following expenditures as recommended by the Tourist Development Council. $10,000 from TDC reserves for the Navarre Fishing Rodeo. $200,000 from TDC General Fund for covered arena amenities. $200,000 from TDC General Fund for future projects. Comments, questions?
The backup is in, this is the, you see Kate's email that was kind of the backup, and I believe this was taken at the TDC meeting February 20th.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you. My questions would be what the funds are to be used for. We have a detailed breakout of the Navarre Fishing Rodeo, $10,000, but then the $200,000 for the TDC for the covered arena and $200,000 for future projects. There's no delineation, no description of what those funds are for.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Melvin, and I've got you.
Thank you. And then Kate.
That last one, I should have said, from TDC General Funds for future South End projects. When the South End Committee approved the North End Committee using $200,000 from general funds, they wanted $200,000 put aside for South End future projects to be determined, is how it was worded. So no, I don't have specifics on it. It was, obviously those projects would have to be approved, but they wanted to be sure that there was $200,000 from the general funds kept aside for a future or future projects for the South End to balance out the $200,000 from the general fund for the North End.
And my comments would be that the $200,000 from the amenities, the Agriplex, basically this money's boxed. And the idea of where those dollars would go, what amenities they would be individual noted items to the board. Just not carte blanche, go buy the stuff. It would come to the board again first.
It all would, but also the $200,000 was very clear that the TDC approved up to $200,000.
Correct.
For the Agriplex.
But what's it for?
For future amenities, things that were mentioned at what the previous meeting were extra bathrooms was the one big item, bleachers, that kind of thing, that was brought to the TDC.
And Mr. Chairman, for the record, the provisional minutes reflect a unanimous decision by the TDC. I was present and abstained from voting since I was going to vote on it again. I just heard the discussion. I did not vote contrary to the minutes. Right. And as our executive director pointed out, and we have 3 items here. The one item, the $10,000 from the TDC for Navarre Fishing Rodeo, was well documented. I think is well documented here. It's a good project. I think it's a good idea. The other 2, they approved up to $200,000 with some discussion for the amenities, and that generated a concern that the south end wasn't getting enough of the financial apple. I mean, they wanted a $200,000 set aside for projects in the south end as well. Mm-hmm. Of course, rising tide floats all boats, but the feeling was that it was, there was a lot going on in the north end, and they wanted that $200,000 earmark, if you will, for future projects.
Okay, Ms. Jones?
They won't receive that unless they submit projects that are approved and then the appropriate invoicing and things.
Ms. Jones?
It's simply to assure that it's there if they need it.
I think I was going to echo what Kate just said, that you'll have to approve these expenditures as they come down the pike, and particularly in the case of the arena, we will have to be certain that those expenditures don't interfere with our existing contract.
Right.
We only have one specific expenditure that needs to be approved Thursday right now, and that's the fishing rodeo expenditure.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner?
when this covered arena was bid out, we had 2 bids, and one was with an option, which was to do with the bathrooms. And now we're going to go back and put bathrooms in, which actually would have made the second line contractor low with his option 1. He would have been the low bidder. I just really don't like the way we're doing this. And also, the other amenities, such as bleachers, I was told that was going to be from donations from folks, and that you were going to use the existing bleachers that were there or in the park. So I guess my question is, what's the criteria for funding from TDC? I mean, I'd like to know what is the criteria that TDC is willing to provide funding. And then on the last part of this, on this $200,000 from general fund for future projects, I believe that we shouldn't approve any monies until those projects are identified. I don't like to get into a south end, north end type confrontation. I think that we're all adults, and if there's things or needs in the south end that come up, since they do generate a lot or most of the bed tax money, I don't think that there's any problem with this board supporting or doing what we need to be done. But I don't want us to get in a situation like Escambia County and Okaloosa County approving stuff, not knowing where it's going and how it's happening and what's going on. I just don't think that this is a precedent that we need to start doing. And I am, like I say, very disappointed that now we're going to go back and build the bathrooms when that should have been in the initial bid. And I think in the initial bid, you told us that you had enough money to do everything that needs to be done. I'm a little confused.
Okay, I'll try to clarify that. One, I've not asked that the TDC money be used for additional bathrooms. I want the contract as it's been executed. The reason I withdrew the $200,000 originally because it was going to go into part of construction. District 2 has enough funding to do the base bid on the low end, and that project's is underway. The $200,000 request that I continued with, and it's like Commissioner Melvin said, it's been voted on unanimously, was for amenities. I never discussed an additional bathroom. My thoughts are, and we do have enough. I mean, if the building was built today, we could hold an event in the building. We got bleachers, we got some stanchions. This would be to go, since the dollars are there, TDC does see this as a good tourist development project, to use these dollars that are just sitting in reserve, not getting any interest of anything, put this project more further ahead. My thoughts were some portable bleachers, possibly some more stanchions. Again, this is just a look at it as, every item would be submitted to the Board of Commissioners for approval. I discussed with him prior, I agree. If there's money in reserves, then that reserve money should be set aside, not trying to cause aggravation or a north-south issue, but it's only in a matter of fairness to the different. I mean, we have a north end TDC committee, we got a south end TDC committee, and then I call it we got a combined, I call it committee of the whole, or whatever title we want to give to it. So if we're going to continue having those two, a north committee and a south committee, then I feel like finance is being distributed as such is only fair. I somewhat agree with Commissioner Williamson that if we don't want a north and south issue, we want to take that away, then we should only have one committee, one TDC committee that discusses the entire county. So as long as we're going to have a north committee and a south committee, I don't see any problem in set aside for each committee to be able to draw from.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I'd like to correct a misstatement you just made. I clearly stated earlier, and I'll restate again for the record, it was not a unanimous vote. I was a voting member. I am a voting member. I was present. I abstained from that vote because I'm going to vote on it here. Point two is much of the same discussion that's taken place here took place there, and the general fear was that this sort of action would set up a point of conflict and be a point of friction. And I personally would prefer that as the arena progresses and various needs are brought up, that those needs come to us on an individual basis and we run it back through the TDC. I think that's the more business-like way to do it. TDC has done a good job with the tax money in the last few years, and I think that we need to continue to keep a solid business-like approach to this instead of blanket allocations. I think that the individual projects need to come as they're identified, and the same goes for the set aside to match. The set aside to match the other $200,000 was just exactly that. It frankly generated some friction, and the South End rightly felt that they weren't being dealt with fairly, and I think that's a bad way for us to start doing business. I think we need to approve projects as they come up for specific dollar amounts, as we are doing with the Navarre Fishing Rodeo. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I, again, like I say, have the question, what is the criteria for funding? Commissioner Sauter and I are in the process of trying to provide funding to build a tennis center in Pace, and we've already got folks that are involved and wanting to run this, and to me that qualifies for economic development as much as the horse arena. And I don't want to, if we're going to have monies available from TDC to spend on projects like this, we want to throw our hat in the ring.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that it's complicated. There are pennies, and they're dedicated to specific functions, and we have begun now to segregate those pennies and pay very close attention to how they're used. But best take it up with the county attorney, because as we all know, you can sure get yourself in trouble with this TDC money.
All right. Then somebody, Mr. Walker, help me out with this. Who would this board task to identify Mr. or Commissioner Williamson's request? Or can we just put something out, it sounds like right now you kind of throw mud up against the wall and see what sticks. So if that's the case, then we need to identify different projects.
Yeah, again, is Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Melvin's right. Ms. Jones can outline what the statutory requirements are for the TDC. I will say that contributing to specific projects, I believe, is an applicable use of the fund based on some kind of expectation that it'll support tourism. And certainly that's a broad definition, and a number of things can fit under there. But if there's a north end designation, so to speak, and a south end designation, that is, the north end does have a number of, you've got several destinations that are potential projects, as in the south end too.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Milton.
the North End Committee is there to bring input from the north end of the county. As we know, we're a very diverse county, and the north end has some very unique tourism features, and the south end has some very unique tourism features. They function much like a miniature version of this board. They have a north end committee and a south end committee that agree to bring things to the committee of the whole. And there's no need to start trying to separate north end from south end and just run it the way it is. What we have is working well. The funding, the money is available. We don't formally here at the county level segregate the money into north end, south end. It's in one account number. And informally, to make sure things are done fairly, the TDC keeps tabs on the expenditures. But, and the north end is coming up with some really great projects. City of Milton's working on a couple right now, and they'll come to us at some point in time. But it's when we have storms and the south end is torn up and there's almost no bed tax dollars coming from the TDC south end, then the north end pitches in, and vice versa. So there's no need to do anything with the structure of the TDC. And I think that we just need to bring individual projects up for funding as those needs arise and bat them around here in this public forum. I think approving a blanket allocation is probably not the best way to do it. I think the most transparent way is to do it project by project as we go along. It accomplishes the same end.
All right, then my suggestion was going to be that we move forward the $10,000 from the South End Reserves for the Navarre. Well, that confuses me too. Then why are we calling it South End Reserves? It would be just TDC Reserves?
Yes, sir. There's no such thing as South End Reserves. We're just would be to move the $10,000 or approve the $10,000 for the rodeo, and then we'll go through the accounting maneuvers. When it's time to spend that money, we will tee the money up in the account that it lives in and move it to a fund that we can spend out of.
Okay. And this discussion's good, so we all get clarification on this and all, I think. So action for Thursday will be moved $10,000 from TDC Reserves for the Navarre Fishing Rodeo on June 1st through 2nd. Information is attached. Caveat to this will be that the county attorney identify the procedure in which to apply for TDC dollars from the TDC reserves. Commissioner Williamson, that cover? Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, before we leave the TDC right quick, is just while Kate's here, there's been a lot of discussion about TDC finances and BP programs and gift cards and that kind of thing. Why don't you be sure you understand in Santa Rosa County is that we accounted for every penny of the BP funds that we were given. The project that Ms. Wilkes set up in coordination with Mr. Hannaford and with Susie Hoodless was a program that was fully audited, fully controlled, and directly. We went in halves on what we used that money to write down half of the hotel stay or the condominium stay in getting tourism that way, which was what BP envisioned. So I do want you to know that as our neighbors are struggling with how they accounted for the funds, is ours has been fully accounted for and audited and open. And I believe that even with the change in the clerk's head, I believe they've gone back and they made sure that they were comfortable with how it was handled.
Commissioner Lynch.
Mr. Chairman, since that was brought up, I'd like to also kind of piggyback on that with just a brief comment about the Restore Act. There's been there have been a few articles in the paper recently about the Restore Act and how, given some of the accounting problems that certain local counties have had, there was a need for more state or federal oversight of the county allocation on the Restore Act. That is built into the Restore Act. Under the Restore Act, the counties don't get a dime until we have come up with a multi-year implementation plan that has been submitted to the federal government and it has been approved. Beyond that, there are requirements for regular federal audits of our Restore funding. So there are safeguards built into place for the Restore Act. And the Restore Act in Florida was driven by local government. State government did not get involved to the extent that the county governments did under the Restore Act. So, you know, I certainly hope we don't see the state government make a play to control the county allocation under Restore at this point because of the actions of a few.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. And thank you for the time you spend keeping this straight. You come up in discussion, as I'll say later, at NACO also. All right, any other comments, questions? If not, I move this to Thursday's agenda. Hearing none, we'll take it up again Thursday. Item number 4. Let me get back to my books. Discussion of placing blue ribbons on Navarre Beach Bridge for a month of April for the Gulf Coast Kids House Blue to Better Child Abuse Awareness Campaign. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I first want to clarify that I'm not here on behalf of our agency, Gulf Coast Kids House, but rather on behalf of From Blue to Better, which is a 4-county collaborative effort to bring awareness to child abuse prevention through Escambia, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, and Walton counties. And the way that we're doing that is multiple ways, but one of the big ways this year is trying to get blue ribbons on bridges throughout the 4 counties. And so I am here to ask permission for our volunteers to place blue ribbons on the Navarre Beach Bridge for the month of April.
Okay. And the same volunteers will be removing the ribbons after the fact?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just housekeeping.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner.
I think that, and I think it's a good cause, but I want to make sure that this is contingent either on completion of the rehab project or either some type of statement from the contractor this is not going to affect his work. Other than that, I certainly have no problem with it.
All right. Avis, could you get that for us and get back to us?
Commissioners, I can
before we approve?
comment on
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We have spoke with the contractor. Currently, their focus is on the mid-span, which is the rehabilitation and painting of the steel portion. I spoke to Ms. Kostovici earlier, and we do believe they'll be able to place them on the 2 approaches on the north and south side of the intercoastal bridge, as well as the small bridge, without any impact to the contractor.
Okay. Would you
And
work
we will
with them?
coordinate that.
Coordinate it, okay. All right. Any other questions from members of the board? All right, looks like you'll be hanging some ribbons on some bridges. And we'll move this to Thursday's meeting without objection. Hearing none, it passes.
It was an interesting last year, I don't know if you paid any attention to it, they did, and when they did it in Escambia County, they painted the bridge 17th Street trestle that's kind of the local landmark, as we all know, and they painted it all blue. I believe it was on a Saturday night, or there was at 4 a.m. they had some volunteers, and they were some of those people that couldn't have stood going to jail, I don't think, over. It didn't last long, but just that's just kind of part of the whole effort.
Being a father and a grandfather, and certainly every one of us up here fit that bill except for Commissioner Lynchard, but at least being a father halfway there, I don't understand how anybody can abuse a child, and that's one sore spot with me, and that's all I got to say about that. All I better say about that, I guess. One other thing I would like to caveat on while we're talking about Navarre Bridge, and if Roger, you can get us some update on it by Thursday, is how we coming along with the state on seeing about any help on the lead mitigation. You can get that to us by Thursday. If not, I'll have an action I'd like to take on Thursday. So, all right, we'll move on now. Item 5 is discussion of request for allocation of $1,000 from Tree Mitigation Fund for tree giveaway program at the Navarre Relay of Life event. This was brought to us by, I think, Lori Gallops, and we had a request from that. I think it's a great program. We all know how important Relay for Life is, and have all been involved in those events. So if there's any other comments or questions on this, I'd move for approval to Thursday's agenda. Hearing none, it passes. Item 6 is discussion of $25,000 allocation to the town of Jay for recreation program from District 3 Recreation Funds. Commissioner Salter, have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the last several years, each year I do a allocation to the town of Jay recreational park program. Since we don't have a large facility up in Jay, and over the last several years we've been asked to build one, but you can't justify building a large facility. So what I like to do, and I've had board support in the past, is just simply help support the town of Jay, provide those programs, do maintenance in the park. They're getting ready to do a relighting of some of the ball fields. Most of the kids who use that facility live outside of the city limits of Jay. So this is just our partnering with the town of Jay to help provide recreation.
Comments? If not, I'll move to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, it passes to Thursday. Item 7 is discussion of the following requests for the 25th Annual Riverwalk Arts Festival, sponsored by Santa Rosa Arts and Culture Foundation, April 5th through the 7th, 2013. Item 1 is use of courthouse parking lots, including south side limestone lot. 2 is banner across eastern corner of lawn. I take it that they mean the courthouse lawn. Temporary no wake zone designation on Blackwater River from US 90 eastward to the railroad trestle during the event.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
I support the whole thing, however, I don't think we have the authority for a no-wake zone. I think Florida reserves that for themselves. Is that, do you know?
That's correct, is we do it. I think that we had, basically, I believe that FWC and the sheriff's office, because of they had asked that the board at least go through the motion of declaring it temporarily a no-wake zone so they could enforce something through there. But we really, you're exactly right. As you know, our boating restrictions, we have to go through a fairly lengthy, and we've done this a number of years, but I think it has the same enforcement capability as a stern look from the county administrator myself. I mean, it's.
All right.
You're correct.
Noting comments, we'll move this to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, we'll finish up on Thursday. Item 8 is discussion of proposal from Baxley Services in the amount of $15,250 for repairs to the recycling building at the central landfill based on comparison shopping. And any comments or questions? We got to keep our things working good. Okay. Move it to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item 9 is discussion of replacement of the legacy PBX telephone exchange at the courthouse with a Cisco voice-over IP system at a cost of $120,302.20, utilizing State of Florida Suncom contract. And we all know how well this is working for us, so move it forward without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item 10 is discussion of inmate work agreement with the Sheriff's Office. Mr. Walker.
Chairman, you see there's agreement that the Sheriff's Office had put together. We currently, and you see Mr. Whitfield's email on the cover of that is we currently, none of the departments that you're responsible for utilize those sheriff crew inmates. All of ours are Department of Corrections. But we could. I guess this would allow us to do that. I think it would also give the sheriff some cover because they do provide, I believe, some services to the supervisor of elections and maybe some of the other people on the other constitutional officers. I agree with Mr. Whitfield. I don't think there would be a harm in approving the contract.
So this would basically work that we'd have a contract in place with the sheriff's office, and then a request would be put in for a particular work crew to do a particular item?
And that's my understanding.
Okay, because this has recently come up when we had the discussion about construction of the covered arena, perhaps using a inmate crew to lay sod or something like that. So as we come across events like this, perhaps cleaning up a park after an event, different items like that, I guess the only thing my question would be is how the sheriff would generate a cost to us, if there was one. If there's no cost to the county, but I can't hardly see him moving a prisoner, a busload of prisoners somewhere and then watching them without there being some sort of small cost to us. So we can get some sort of idea what that would be or how he would base that cost. I agree. We go ahead and put the contract in place, but before we initiate any of this, we'd ought to know up front what it would cost.
I don't believe it'd be our expectation that we'd pick up any cost. I mean, if we were gonna use these people, I mean,
Okay, I just, and hopefully there's no cost, but I'd like to make sure that's in the contract, that there's no cost, so we don't get hit with a bill the first time we use one, so.
Well, I sort of went over that contract, and I didn't see where there were any charges that were mentioned, so I think we just need to leave that alone.
Okay. All right, that's clear.
that was
then
gonna be
I'm good
Mr.
with it.
Whitfield's my approach.
I'm 100% for it. I have no problem whatsoever. Davis, you sitting over there like you'd like to say something. So.
Well, I don't think there's any cost associated with it. It's just going to be the sheriff would supply those inmates when they are available.
Okay.
And I think that's the reason that we don't use the sheriff's inmates because of the availability issues. We know we can count on the state prison crews, and so that's the reason we use the Department of Corrections inmates. But he may have inmates available for events like you're talking about. And of course, we do have one inmate crew assigned to the Parks Department. So events in the parks like you're talking about, if there needs to be cleanup afterwards or there needs to be some sod laid associated with a certain project, we currently already do that. We have an inmate crew assigned to the Parks Department for projects just like you're talking about.
Now, is that state or is that?
That's our state inmates, yes.
Okay. Good. Any other comments, questions? All right. Move that to Thursday's agenda without objection. Hearing none, we'll finish Thursday. Item 11, discussion of use of the courthouse lawn noon Thursday, May 2nd, 2013 for the annual National Day of Prayer observance to include use of the courtroom 100 as a rain alternative. We all look forward to this event every year, and I move that forward without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item 12 is discussion of the use of Williams Lake Road for a 10K run benefit for the preservation of the historic Coon Hill Cemetery. Commissioner Saller, I believe that's in your district. You got any comments on that?
It is. It's a group up in the north end here again trying to raise funds to help restore some of the damage that's been done at the, here again, historic Coon Hill Cemetery. And I think Mr. Gomillion is going to have the torch that leads the run.
Good. All right.
But I support this.
Great. All right, we'll move it till Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item 13 is public hearing item scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Thursday. We have none. Item 14 is an add-on that I had, and everybody was handed a current NACO policy on Oil Pollution Act and Clean Water Act spill fines. And it's basically just to let you know that our state association director, Chris Hawley, was there. He held this meeting. I have a copy of recommendations for improving oil spill planning and response capabilities in Florida that was handed out up there at that conference. We had representatives in that small meeting from all 5 states. The adopted policy from NACO supports federal legislation and policies to strengthen local government involvement under the Oil Pollution Act. NACO supports requiring federal agencies to oversee the Oil Pollution Act to consult and coordinate with local governments in environmental protection, oil spill contingency plan training, and implementation of the Oil Pollution Act process. There's still talk up there about the want for BP to move it to NERDA. because it comes a tax deduction from them. NACO policy does not support that. They're fighting that for us also. When I spoke to other county commissioners from everywhere from Hawaii, Alaska, and every one of the 50 states, I urged them if this happened to come up in conversation with them and their state representatives, to ask them to support keeping it as is. Do not let it be moved to NERDA. One guy from Colorado couldn't understand it. I said, well, basically, if the Colorado River gets polluted and a pollution fine is levied on whoever the polluter was, why would Florida have to put their name in the hat for part of those dollars? And he kind of started catching on at that point. So that's kind of just a report. Any comments or questions, or anybody'd like a copy of this, I'll make it available for distribution to the rest of the board or the general public. Real good meeting we had up at NACO this year, and moving things forward. The other discussion at NACO was the plan from President Obama to remove tax-free municipal bonds, the interest, those non-interest bearing bonds that don't have taxing authority on them. For anybody that didn't know it, the IRS has been around for 100 years this year. 2013 is the 100th birthday of IRS, and kind of disappointed I didn't get my invitation yet to the party. I don't know if any of you guys did, but nobody up there seemed to get one either. But also, tax-free municipal bonds have been in place for 100 years, and they give the capability to municipalities to do just what it is, have bonds with move projects forward. And so I brought that up at the NACO meeting on energy, environment, and land use. We voted on it. It passed unanimously to carry that, add that to our agenda for our meeting this summer that we'll have in Fort Worth, Texas this year. And then item 15 is a meeting that was able to be arranged at Senator Rubio's office, and we're continuing to try to get fee simple title for our island property. And my reason for that meeting was to bring Senator Rubio's staff up to speed on the need for that, and Congressman Salter, or Congressman Miller, not quite yet, but Congressman Miller's ability or want to move that forward, but doesn't have support on the Senate companion bill on that. So instead of going back to Senator Nelson, and I believe our Escambia County contingency is going to Senator Nelson on that, I brought this to Senator Rubio's staff. They seem real interested in getting that to the senator, and hopefully we'll get some help on the Senate side and get this project moved forward where we can give the citizens that we represent out on the island fee simple title and get everything settled for them, both on Escambia and Santa Rosa County side. We'll get our title to the Bar Beach side from Escambia. So hopefully we'll get that moving forward again this year and get some conversation going on that. So, any comments or questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That ends the administrative committee agenda. Now we'll turn to our next committee. As soon as I get my page turned here. Or, I'm sorry, our engineering report. Mr. Blaylock, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Last meeting, we discussed the Peter Prince Airport with the penetrations to our 20-to-1 approach slope at Peter Prince. Over the past 2 weeks, we've had our survey crew out. They have verified that indeed there are penetrations in the 20-to-1 approach slope. What they also found was we had penetrations in our 7-to-1 slopes, which are these slopes highlighted in red here. As you come out from your primary,
It's in your back.
I'm sorry, would you project my computer, please? Thank you. It's in your backup highlighted, this particular slide. We found not only were there penetrations in the 20-to-1, both south of 90 and on airport property, and we discussed removing trees here, and the board had noted that we wanted to try to save oaks. We find that the 7-to-1 side slope that goes from the taxiway, if you will, out rises 1 foot vertical for every 7 feet horizontal. And we've got numerous trees. Most all of the pine trees in this area penetrate that surface, and they will have to go, as well as the oak trees. And then I had them go look to the north, and indeed, in our new FBO area, those oak trees that he has along that edge that he preserved are indeed penetrating as well. And so with that, would like board authorization to proceed with the removal of these additional trees at Peter Prince.
Y'all had specifically noted the oak trees before, and that's the reason we brought it back.
Mr. Blaylock, okay, so the ones that are on the new FBO are going to have to come down also, the oak
Yeah,
trees?
the ones that we checked, these right along this edge here that he had preserved, he had taken the pine trees out, and there are oak trees clusters there. They clearly penetrate the 7-to-1 surface.
Will the county, as we're removing everything else, remove those also? I
Yeah,
don't.
it would be my recommendation. That's leased property, this is county, this is a safety issue, yes, sir.
Okay.
We would do it in our contract.
All right. So there, at the south end, we would not be able to preserve any of the oaks?
Only if you get right along the edge of Aviation Drive over here, perhaps.
Okay.
But 500 feet, that's 71 feet, so
Okay.
it's,
All right.
it's, and we have, those pine trees are 60-plus feet tall.
Okay. And I agree, Commissioner Melvin brought it up last time, that since we are cutting this much, you know, if there's any ability to sell off that pulpwood or something,
We are working with the Public Works Road and Bridge folks who work with pulpwooders and even chippers to see which is the most efficient way to go about doing this.
and then ground cover after the fact, once this is,
It would be my recommendation that we leave it as shrub, or rather than sod it. We're not talking about clearing the grub and removing stumps. We're just taking the penetrations down, and as it grows back, we'll chop it as necessary as it penetrates. So there will be natural vegetation versus trying to clear and grub, seed, and mulch.
I'll agree with that on the back part, but I think this front corner, here again, we're, you know, trying to step up the face out there. I think we ought to do something with that front corner to, you know, you're talking about you know, the back, like I say, the back's irrelevant, but that front corner, I think we ought to do something with it, keep it looking good. You know, just my thoughts. I don't know how much additional cost that would be, but, you know, we're gonna have we're building new hangars. We got all that done. That looks great out there. You know, to have a weedy, basically stumpy, weedy corner up there, kind of, I just think that'd be kind of rough looking coming right into there. I'd like to see how the rest of the board feels, but I think that corner there needs to be made look right, as with the corner where they just finished up, you know, with all the brick road project. Get the front, get our front of our airport looking good. If we're gonna put up a new sign, let's get all that looking good. That back air kind of blends in with the rest of the woods, so I don't think we got a problem back there. So.
Okay.
Any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner?
are we saying that if it's in those slope zones, we want to try to leave some of it? Okay,
Don't sound like we can.
just want to make sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, sir. There are a few folks out there that don't shoot absolutely perfect approaches, and it's not unusual at all to be off 75, 200, 300 feet, especially depending on the type of weather you're operating in. And it's essential that there be no obstruction in that area as well. Right down the center line is ideal, but there's one or two folks out there that'll not quite hit the center line.
Okay. Any objections from the board of going ahead and doing that front corner, making it sodded, seeded, whatever we need to do, de-stump it, get it looking right?
Let's get an estimate on that before we authorize them to go ahead and proceed. I don't know what kind of acreage we're talking about down front, but, you know, before we clear, grub, and sod, let's find out how much it's gonna cost. Let's go ahead and get the trees out of there. An oak tree will bring down an airplane just as easy as a pine tree, so let's get all the trees out of there, clean that spot up, and then let's see how much it would cost to make it look good.
Okay.
Yeah, and my memory of this is vague. The northeastern quadrant that's in red hatch, that's got to be cleared, I agree, but there may be an erosion problem there we may need to tend to.
we already got a pit back in there, so that's all. Roger, I'm sure we'll take care of all that. We got to do that as far as pulling land disturbing permits and all that stuff. I mean, that should all be addressed then, I would believe.
It certainly will be addressed if we're going to clear and grub that southeastern quadrant. The northeastern quadrant, we're talking just taking the trees down, leaving the natural vegetation, the root mat, so it would be minimal disturbance.
Okay, all right, then if you'll get back with us on a price, will Thursday work for us?
We'll certainly try.
Okay, all right, go on.
Item number 2 is a discussion of a preliminary plat for Miller McCoy subdivision. This is going to be a private 14-lot subdivision. It's located in the almost Blackwater Forest off of Walther Road. Let me pull up a map here so that you can see it. It's come up Munson Highway, Indian Ford Road, back to Walther Road, and as you can see, the highlighted area is going to be a red area. That initially started out as a large parcel, 20-acre plus subdivision. The developer saw a need to further cut these down to over 4 acres, so he qualifies for the dirt road private subdivision, and he's going through the platting process. And this is, next slide is his conceptual approval to parcel it out in over 4 acre lots.
Okay, yeah, so this will be a dirt road subdivision.
That is correct, private
Okay.
dirt road subdivision. Large, we call it in the LDC a large parcel
Right.
subdivision.
And I just want clarification on this, so boards in the future won't be stuck with this. Angie, is there a means or something that we currently have in place where realtors have to disclose that this is private roads and don't expect the county to come in here and pave them, or don't go crying to the Board of Commissioners 10, 15 years from now that it's a private subdivision and you
I
want
think
them
there's a
paid?
twofold answer to your question. Yes, a road maintenance letter goes with every property transaction that takes place in the county. This road is or is not county maintained. Second part, we've had a policy in place, and Avis can tell you the exact date, but since about 1986, whereby we do not accept dirt roads, period.
And I know we don't accept them, but we get a lot of people that misunderstand it, and then they, some realtor that wants to move a piece of property, you don't let them know all that, so.
Right, I think we're real clear on that. We don't take dirt roads, we don't maintain any new dirt roads, pave them to our standards before we talk about accepting
Main thing,
them.
there is something in place that lets that person know that when they sign. Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments or questions? Okay, Roger, we'll move that to Thursday for a vote.
And item number 3 is a discussion of the paved road and drainage maintenance for the forest at Oriole Beach. This is a 25 lot. This is a public subdivision. It has been constructed for a number of years. The banks have stepped in and completed it, recorded the plat, and we're here to discuss the board accepting it for maintenance.
And I take it that it's all up to snuff and everything, or we wouldn't be discussing
We're
this?
working any small details to be able to keep it on the agenda, and if it's not ready, then we would recommend on Thursday that no action be taken.
Okay. All right, thank you. Go ahead to number 3, or 4 then. Your
Number
add-on.
4 was an add-on, and that was the discussion of the paved road and drainage maintenance for Duncan Ridge. This was a subdivision that came before the board, I think, on the last 2 meetings. The plat has been released for recording in that the developer has completed all the uninstalled improvements, and we're prepared to recommend Thursday acceptance of maintenance of those improvements.
Okay, we'll move that to Thursdays without objection. Hearing none, it passes till Thursday.
And, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the engineer's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Engineer. Now we'll go to Public Service Committee. Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 items. Item number 1 is discussion of approval to process Land Development Code amendment related to land clearing. Mr. Comey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this particularly would just be an ongoing effort related to some of our recent discussions. Both of these items would be both comments we've heard as well as just practical experience in trying to clean up some items and make it more both user-friendly and easier to interpret from the staff level and understandable. So this first item would be primarily around trying to revet this, make sure we're all in agreement with what land disturbing or land clearing activity means and what would be exempt from that particular requirement.
Any questions from members of the board? If not, I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Mr. Chairman, we'll discuss this further?
Yes, this will just direct staff to draft an amendment and then schedule a public hearing in the future. So that we will have at least one more discussion on this, probably.
Yes, both of these in our normal procedure will be to bring you, just so that you know this is going to the zoning board. This would go to the zoning board with some draft language, and then it would come to you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'll move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it's moved. Item number 2, discussion of approval to process land development code amendment related to trees and landscaping. Mr. Gomez, anything other than what you've already mentioned about that?
Similar comments.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Melvin.
Yes, sir, Mr. Gomez, and I'd like to see you bring us options for business owners that don't want to hide behind trees once they've made their capital investment, so that we have a shrub option that is available. I'd like very much to see that included in what you bring us.
Okay. All right, we can, we'll take those comments and try to incorporate some options for the zoning board to consider related to what you would ultimately see. But if you have specifics, we can try to work with you to make sure what you want us to forward to the zoning board.
That'll be fine, thank you.
Just one other question. Do we have an idea of a time frame this will take place in, and how many projects are in the pipeline right now that this might affect?
Becky would know. I would not think it would be that many projects that it would be critical to, but I think we would be moving forward fairly quickly with these recommended changes and/or options.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment if I may.
Commissioner Melvin.
Thank you, sir. I would hope that these changes would make it easier for the people in the pipeline and not more stringent for the people in the pipeline. I've had numerous comments from the business community that would be more than happy to maintain a shrub, a well-trimmed, well-maintained shrub that would be attractive, that wouldn't hide their business. And right now, we require trees. So I very much look forward to that option.
Okay, and certainly, again, we will work with the board to provide us input as far as what you would like to see in this. That's part of this is just to revet these requirements. You will note that, and we list a number of things in that particular item that we're discussing now. One of the things is to reduce some of the plantings in the heart of Navarre, and then there's some other specifics mentioned in there. But we'd be glad to try to hear what you're desiring for the zoning board to consider in these changes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to save you some effort, and instead of sending you back next time, I'll tell you up front.
Understood.
You mentioned the heart of Navarre, that's good, but that's less than 1/10 of 1% of Santa Rosa County. I think this, we're talking about a county-wide option for business people that would like not to have to plant trees between themselves and traveling public.
Absolutely, and again, I just noted that heart of Navarre as being one of the items. This is obviously a county-wide ordinance, and I will note too that one of the things that we do deal with, and again, there'll be an opportunity to for the board to determine where they want to see us go. One of the things that both landscaping and trees, shrubs, the other side of the equation relative to the, quote, the business concerns are the residential or the incompatible uses. And so we always get in that dilemma of the buffers and those things when we have businesses butting up against. And so we hear both sides of that, and you, of course, you do too. And we just, we try to find that balance. It's good to revet these things and make sure where everybody feels comfortable at.
Mr. Gomez, if you'll just bring us back something that makes everybody happy.
By Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3 is discussion of approval of a grant application and resolution for a sidewalk project in the town of Jay. And this relates to Transportation Alternatives Program grant application to continue the sidewalk from School Street north along Spring Street in the town of Jay. And I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Just one question, Mr. Chairman. Do these sidewalks come with an automatic roll-up device?
I don't believe they do.
They don't? Okay, all right. Thank you. Hearing no objection, it passes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes public services.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Now we'll move to Public Works Committee. Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 items today. The first item is discussion of scheduling a public hearing on the proposed vacation of a portion of Big Oak Loop. And the backup is also approval contingent upon the conveyance of a turnaround easement to the county. And I recommend we move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2 is discussion of transferring 2 surplus zero-turn mowers from the Parks Department to Santa Rosa Correctional Institution. And also on the backup information, these are used on many projects that are beneficial to Santa Rosa County. And I recommend we move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3 is discussion of 1-year extension of agreement with Southern Energy Company on fuel, oil, and lubricants, with fuel markup reduced to match Santa Rosa County School Board pricing. I recommend we move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, just one, because I know this has come up before. Does the Sheriff's Office participate in this program as well?
I'm not sure if they do or not. We could check and see, but I'm not sure if they participate. I would think the sheriff has a different vendor from us now, but I'm not sure of
Compare
that.
prices with the sheriff. We can go forward with this. I'm sure the school board gets a great deal because of all the fuel that they consume, but let's verify that the sheriff is getting the best deal that he can as well.
Sure.
The last item is discussion of proposal from Beard Equipment Company in the amount of $12,577.90 for 1 single-wing rotary mower and $15,774.57 for 1 dual-wing rotary mower based on comparison shopping. And I recommend we move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Williamson. And finally, we have Budget and Finance Committee, Commissioner Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 6 items this morning. Item number 1 is discussion of bids received for the Ship Home Substantial Rehabilitation Project located at 3871 Hicks Lane in Pace. The low bidder meeting specifications is Design Home Builders Incorporated with a bid of $24,710. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 2 is discussion of board approval to exceed the $25,000 project limit under the SHIP program for the rehabilitation of the dwelling at 3871 Hicks Lane in Pace. And as you can see from your backup, there was like a $100 overrun or something. Small amount of money, it's just a detail. I recommend we move Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 3 is Budget Amendment 2013-102 in the amount of $303,540, which will recognize the TDC commitments to the Baghdad Mill site, which would include $162,000 from the North End TDC reserves. And as we mentioned earlier, these reserves are theoretical. They don't exist within our accounting system. And $175,000 from the general TDC reserves, less the $33,460 previously carried forward as a grant match, and that would have been Amendment 2013-93, and authorize those for expenditure in the grant fund. And I recommend approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 4 is Budget Amendment 2013-103 in the amount of $38,000, which will carry forward funds from the MSBU Road Paving Projects Fund from the Tallwood Court Road Paving MSBU project as approved at the February 28, 2013 Board of County Commissioner meeting, and I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 5 is Budget Amendment 2013-104 in the amount of $49,575, which will recognize Florida Forest Service Volunteer Fire Assistance VFA grant and allocate those funds for expenditure. And I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 6 is discussion of the county expenditures and check register. I've just started my review, and I'll have that complete, signed, and on your desk by Thursday morning, Mr. Chairman. I recommend we move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes. Any further?
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Melvin. Any other comments from board members on the additional items from staff? Open a public forum. Seeing none, we're adjourned.